Alright everyone, it's time to quickly analyze some polling because we do have a new round with regards to Trump's approval. In the next few days, once we get another round in, I'll look at the generic ballot, some of the Senate races, maybe even some of the House races, and do a general midterm banter report. But right now we've got to look at the Rasmussen poll. It shows Trump, for the first time, a poll is showing that his approval is in the positive. That's statistically significant even if I assume that this poll, and I mostly do, is probably an outlier. Rasmussen showing him at 50% approval, 49% disapproval. Of course, the last time Rasmussen showed him at 50, it was 50-50. So it was a zero-sum sort of situation. This one shows him a point ahead. This is partially corroborated by other polls that we're seeing. His approval has definitely risen in the last week. It didn't falter much. I expected it would falter 2 or 3 points and stay down there for longer after the incident before, I believe it was the Russia summit. It didn't actually happen though. It slipped less than I expected and very quickly rose back up. Partially, I think, because of North Korea. Also partially, I think, because of very good economic markers. You can expect his approval to rise organically a little bit. He's perilously close. The Democrats have to be worried. He's very close to 45. At that point, they go into a panic mode because they know that represents, the 45% represents the entire, more or less, Republican coalition and virtually all right-leaning independents. If he can get those people energized, the Senate certainly goes towards the Republicans. The House probably maintained by Republicans, no blue wave, in other words. We're also looking at gubernatorial races. The Democrats are not favored to do very well in those either. That was something nobody's really talking about. However, if we look at all of the recent polls, if we look at YouGov, Gallup, Quinnipiac, all these others, I believe an College Emory poll, the Rasmussen poll is an outlier. In other words, it's like the Quinnipiac poll that I ignored that showed him at only 38% approval. When you judged it based on the other numbers, which averaged to about 43, 44, it is an outlier. Statistically, it's outside of the realm of reasonable probability that represents the true number. The same is true with Rasmussen, but it does show an upward trajectory. When you amalgamate it with other recent polling, his approval has risen. It certainly hasn't dropped. It's above 43. It's getting towards 44. That's really, really close to where he needs to be by the midterms. I think that he personally makes it unless he makes 1 or 2 major mistakes or unless the economy suddenly flatlines. I don't see either of those. Early indicators show the economy may very well spike further. We might hit 5%. Unemployment may tick down even further. The North Korean stuff is going well. People tried to throw missile development at him and say, oh, he failed. They're still developing missiles. I didn't even report on it. I'm like, they've been developing those for years and so have all of their neighbors. That's a normal activity for a nation to undertake. The fact that it's North Korea shouldn't worry you. That's normal. That's totally par for the course within North Korea. What's different is that they've dismantled one of their main missile launching sites, which shows they're probably not going to use those missiles. That's a really good thing. You can combine it with the power remains and the fact that there might be another summit anytime. That's really good news in Korea. That's probably contributing to his good approval rating. And it is good. He's ahead of where Obama was at the same time in his presidency. What do we know about Obama? He got reelected with flying colors. Do you honestly think that the Democrats are going to be able to unseat him if he's 3 or 4 points ahead of where Obama was? Look, his approval is going to rise during the election unless it's already like above 50%. That's what happens during elections because then he can browbeat the Democrats directly, debate them directly. He'll be in the public consciousness. The reason why the Democrats, like when they talk about Joe Biden being more favorable and they say, well, in a matchup, he'd be 2 or 3 points ahead of Trump. Number one, that's underwhelming. Remember, Hillary Clinton was supposedly 8 points ahead in most states, and she fucking lost. So that doesn't give Joe Biden a very good chance now, does it? Do some math in your head and see, do you think that the polls have swung all the way in the other direction towards being fair? I don't think so. His approval could already be at 50. Who fucking knows? I just think that it would be difficult for that many polls to be that wrong for that prolonged a length of time since the election. I tend to trust the aggregate that I'm seeing now considerably more than the aggregate that I saw when you had a million CNN polls magically coming out during the election and MSNBC. By the way, I'm going to ignore them again. I'm absolutely going to ignore every poll that I see from CNN. I'll conduct my own aggregate and unskew it myself. I'll leave out Rasmussen on one end and CNN and MSNBC on the other, and I'll probably get a better number than Nate Silver will be using. If you look up Trump approval right now, Nate Silver's bullshit shows up ahead of RCP, and I'm like, Why? His idea of poll unskewing is, yeah, Trump is automatically at a deficit because, it's self-evident. He did this during the election. It's going to be a freak show all over again. He'll probably guess that Trump will lose, and he'll probably be wrong. That's probably what will end up happening. It'll be funny if it does. And I'll laugh all the way to the bank, by the way, at that point. I'll be coming for these people's jobs, but I wouldn't want them. Trump is probably in the mid-40s right now. He could be at 45 already, but the aggregate shows 43 and a half, 44, somewhere around there. He's within a point of where he needs to be, and it's been climbing slowly upwards over time. Now, he hasn't done anything recently that would collapse it. He has, however, had good reason to believe it'll continue to rise. A lot of Americans, they want a decent job and they want some optimism. Consumer confidence is at an all-time high, basically, in this country already. Unemployment is at its lowest point among almost every single individual group, every single racial and gender and every other demographic you can have it at. What's not to like about Trump's presidency? I'm scratching my head. I'm looking around and I'm thinking, people definitely do. Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. We have to start recognizing it as an actual disorder of sorts. People who were fed propaganda for long enough that they think that he's unacceptable won't accept him even if there is no longer any reasonable marker to not accept him by. What's he done wrong? Have we actually pissed off an ally and lost an alliance? No. Is the economy gone south? No. Is unemployment down? Yeah, it's certainly not up. Are we in any major wars at the moment? No, he hasn't started one of those. Have we entered World War III? No. Is his diplomatic attempt generally going well? Yeah, more or less. I don't necessarily support threatening the Iranians, but it could work. We have to wait and see. I have to oppose it on principle. Now, I know, by the way, I'm in the minority in this country, even among some Democratic groups on that. So, what exactly has he done to piss these people off? Simply be a racist and sexist because MSNBC says so? Well, as they go into organic decline, his approval is going to rise anyway. And then once the Mueller probe ends, which eventually it will, his approval will probably skyrocket then too. Look, if that happens before 2020, you will see presidential Trump second term. It will happen. I can tell you that right now. His approval is just screaming to skyrocket. Every other marker is there except he's got the Russia bullshit hanging over his head like a dark cloud. Well, eventually you're not going to have it. He didn't collude with the Russians. He's not going to get indicted and he's not going to get impeached. At this point, I think Mueller's just waiting till after the midterms, hoping that the Democrats take the House so that it won't wipe them off the face of the earth in 2020 when he has to say, yeah, Trump didn't do anything wrong. He's waiting for them to score a major victory. They probably told him behind the scenes, please, Mr. Mueller, we know you can't indict him. Wait until after the midterms, maybe 2020. Maybe you can stave it off till then. It's going to begin to look a little bit conspicuous. Now, Trump is doing just fine. At this point, he still has a 90% chance of being reelected. Mainly because the only qualified opponents on the Democratic side I can see for them, none of them have pledged that they're even going to run. Biden's talked openly about it. Biden can't beat Donald Trump. He probably won't be alive in 2020. He's an old man. He's in his mid-70s. Give it a fucking rest. Bernie Sanders, same thing. Bernie Sanders can't even run. Hillary Clinton, she's a sick old lady. If you put her before Trump, if she actually became the nominee, he would trounce her. He would destroy her. Especially since she's run twice already. It would be a joke. Even a lot of neoliberals wouldn't vote for her. Turnout would be so low the Democrats wouldn't win a state. You wouldn't even win California at that point. Something tells me the DNC is actually dumb enough to think it's a good idea too. I think they're grooming Gillibrand to be basically the alternative to Hillary Clinton. Younger, less compromised, a little bit more likable and charismatic, but ultimately a Clintonian. They're trying to groom her by getting her to play sort of good cop to Soros's bad cop in order to make herself look like a partial maverick, to try to tie the progressive movement back into the Democrats. I don't think that it'll end up working, but, it'd be a better shot that she has than any other Democrat I currently see. Kamala Harris, yeah, maybe. Maybe Kamala Harris. I don't think so, though. There are other qualified Democrats that simply aren't qualified because of interior party policies, too. You'd have a moderate Democrat can't run right now very easily. They'd have to rebrand themselves like Gillibrand is doing. That's what she's doing. She's setting the stage by rebranding herself as something that she's not to try to appeal to younger Democrats. That she knows otherwise will leave the party in droves again to vote for the next Jill Stein. Or they'll vote for Trump to punish their own party if there are any shenanigans. So they have to blame Russia preemptively for their loss in 2020. They're already doing that. They're setting the stage. Don't you think that it's a little bit odd that the cultural argument that everyone's having right now is just Russia, Russia, Russia all the fucking time? You never heard anything about it before the 2016 election. It was like, yeah, Russia, when Russia was mentioned, it was like, oh yeah, Putin flew a plane too close to our border. Big problem. Now all of a sudden Russia is invoked every fucking single day. Don't you find that conspicuous, as though it was propaganda designed to scramble your mind? I do. It's just like if Putin started rambling about the US being responsible for his economic problems every day, the Russian people would be right to eventually reject that message on the basis that it sounded a little bit fishy to them. It's a little bit fishy. Every time something goes wrong, he starts talking about Uncle Sam. What gives? He's not responsible for running the fucking country? The Democrats are responsible for their election loss, not Russia. That's about all. Peace out.